As you remember, we were in the middle of a witness last evening, so we'll continue with her testimony, okay? All right, thank you.
Did you see Ms. Heard shortly after she returned from Australia?
Yes.
How soon after she arrived back from Australia did you see her?
I believe it was immediately upon her return.
And she visited you in your apartment at the Eastern Columbia building, is that right?
Yes.
You testified that you observed injuries on Ms. Heard on this occasion, is that right?
Yes.
What injuries did you observe?
She had these deep cuts on the backs of her forearms. And yeah, there were very, very deep, long cuts on the backs of her forearms.
Did you see her feet?
At first, when she came over, she had shoes on, and then she showed me her feet. Yeah.
What specifically do you recall seeing on Ms. Heard's feet?
They were just they were cut. It was smaller cuts than the ones on her arms.
Were both feet cut?
I don't remember if it was both or one.
You testified that Ms. Heard told you that she got these injuries from glass from broken bottles. Is that correct?
Yes.
You were not in Australia with Ms. Heard when she allegedly sustained these injuries. Is that correct, Ms. Pennington?
I was not in Australia.
So your only understanding as to how Ms. Heard sustained these injuries is what she told you, right?
That is my understanding.
You've testified that you attended a Thanksgiving dinner with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard in November of 2015. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this dinner was held in Penthouse 5 at the Eastern Columbia building, right?
Yes.
And just for clarification, Penthouse 5 was not Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's primary residence, correct?
All of the penthouses are connected.
Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard lived in Penthouse 3. Is that correct?
Well, technically, they lived in all of them. They were all connected.
Where did they have their bedroom? In which penthouse?
Their bedroom was in 3.
Who attended this Thanksgiving dinner?
I think that, well, Josh, myself, Amber, Johnny. There were a couple of Johnny's friends. I think Amber's dad was there. Jack, Johnny's son. I don't remember anyone else specifically.
Do you recall what time you all sat down to eat dinner?
No.
Okay, but you testified at some point late in the meal, Amber went upstairs to look for Johnny and stayed up there for a long time, correct?
Yes.
And did Mr. Depp sit down to dinner with all of you?
I don't know if we all actually sat down at one point.
Did you see Mr. Depp at some point leave the dinner?
I don't remember him leaving. I remember noticing that he was gone.
Did you see where Mr. Depp left to, where he went?
I either upstairs or out the front door. I didn't see it happen, so I don't know.
Did you observe Ms. Heard consume any alcohol before she went to look for Mr. Depp?
Yes.
What was she drinking?
Red wine.
Did she seem drunk when she went to look for Mr. Depp?
No.
Did you observe any injuries to Ms. Heard when she returned?
No.
Did you observe any injuries to Mr. Depp when he returned?
No.
Do you remember that when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard came downstairs, they were wearing different clothes?
I don't remember Johnny changing clothes. I do remember that Amber changed clothes.
Do you remember anyone that was still there when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard came back downstairs?
Believe Josh and myself. David Heard. And I don't remember anyone else specifically who was still there.
You also testified that when, quote, you went to look and found that a full bottle of wine had hit and broken a piece of art that Amber really loved above the bed, and that broken glass was scattered all over the bed.
Did I testify that?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that an accurate description of what you saw?
Yes.
And where did you see this? In what room?
In their bedroom of PH3.
How did you get to this penthouse from penthouse 5?
I went upstairs in penthouse 5, across the top story, which all 3 penthouses were connected, through to penthouse 3. The bedroom was also on the top story, and all the way through and around.
Do you recall seeing any spilled wine?
I think there was wine. Yeah, I think there was also spilled wine on the bed and on the ground.
Do you remember whether that bottle of wine was broken or not?
I don't remember that the bottle was broken, but there's also plenty of glasses around with wine in them that could have been part of that. There was glass everywhere.
So you specifically remember glass being everywhere upstairs. Is that fair?
On the bed, mostly.
What kind of wine bottle was it? Magnum? Red? Do you remember?
It would have been red.
Was it a Magnum bottle?
I don't think so.
What picture had been damaged?
I think it was one of Eleanor Finney, I believe.
Apologies, Ms. Pennington. What did it look like?
I don't remember which one.
You saw the aftermath?
The aftermath, fair.
So you don't know that Mr. Depp actually threw the bottle, right?
I don't know.
Ms. Heard could have thrown the bottle. True?
She could have.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Did you say she could have?
She could have.
And was the evening still happening after you returned from observing the bedroom?
Yes.
Do you recall any other issues happening, any further problems during the evening?
I don't recall any. No.
Do you remember providing deposition testimony about this Thanksgiving incident when you were deposed in the divorce proceeding?
If you have transcript of that original deposition, I could take a look at it and recall.
Do you have any independent recollection of testifying during the divorce proceeding about Thanksgiving?
Are you talking about the deposition or testifying?
I'm talking about your deposition during the divorce proceeding.
She's asking
Do you remember?
I remember the depo, but it was a very long depo, and a lot of topics were covered.
So, do you remember during the depo testifying that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard returned to dinner? Mr. Depp was, quote, acting like nothing had happened. Do you remember that testimony?
I don't remember the specifics of the testimony.
Okay. So, can videographer, would you mind, or tech, pulling up Ms. Pennington's July 14, 2016 deposition transcript?
December.
July 14, 2016, it's volume 2.
Where am I looking in the document?
Yes, if you could please scroll down to page 238. Ms. Pennington, if you could look on page 238 of your deposition transcript from July 14, 2016, line 23, and if you could read to yourself through page 240, line 18.
Do you have control? You have control.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just I don't have like the scrolly thing, so I just have to.
You can do page down. You can do this arrow.
Oh. What line am I reading down to?
Page 240, line 18. you testified at your deposition that after Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard returned to dinner, Mr. Depp was, quote, acting like nothing happened. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the night has faded in my memory, but as I read this, yeah.
Is that an accurate description of what you observed Mr. Depp that evening?
This description?
Yeah. Was it your observation the evening of Thanksgiving that you couldn't tell whether Mr. Depp was drunk or angry, that he just put on a facade?
I couldn't tell what he was feeling. I didn't know what was going on.
And you couldn't tell if he was drunk, correct?
I couldn't tell.
And you couldn't tell if he was angry that evening either?
Well, I can't say what anybody else's emotions are at any time.
You didn't perceive him being angry in front of you that evening?
At me, no.
At anyone?
Not that I recall.
So fair to say that Mr. Depp did not seem angry to you when he came downstairs after the Thanksgiving dinner, right?
He didn't seem any particular way to me.
So you testified that in December of 2015, Amber called you over to her apartment so that you could check her out. Is that a correct statement? You testified to that?
Yes.
Okay, my question was, after you arrived, you observed injuries to Ms. Heard, right?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing that her head was bloody, where a chunk of hair had been ripped out of the back of her head?
Yeah. Yes.
Was her head actively bleeding when you saw her?
It was, it wasn't like dripping down her head, but it was raw and red.
Was it actively bleeding, if you remember?
Define actively bleeding.
Was there blood?
Yes.
How could you tell hair had been ripped out of her head?
There was a bloody patch with hair missing.
Where was her face red?
Her whole face.
Could the redness have been from crying?
It could have been.
Where did her nose appear to be swollen?
It'd be like the upper bridge.
Did you observe that Ms. Heard had any black eyes?
Not that I recall.
Was there blood on her lips when you saw her?
It was cut open.
Was there blood coming out of that cut?
Sorry, you can answer. Sorry.
I don't remember if there was blood coming out of it at that point.
Was it on the top or bottom lip?
It was on the bottom.
Before we go there, have any independent recollection of seeing a laceration on Ms. Heard's forehead?
There were many times that I saw injuries on her. If you would like to show me a photo or point me to another place where I can remember which injury was in which instance, then I can answer the question.
So you testified that Ms. Heard had a laceration on her forehead when you saw her, correct?
Yes.
If you remember, where on her forehead was this laceration?
Up by the hairline.
Was it on the right or left side?
I don't remember.
Was the laceration bleeding?
I don't think so.
Sitting here today, did you observe any other injuries to Ms. Heard that evening that you remember?
No.
If we can go back to Ms. Pennington's witness statement in the United Kingdom, that would be great.